There's nothing more damaging to feminism than this gross rape lynch mob culture, writes Joanna Williams. For centuries, the fundamental principle underpinning British law has been innocent until proven guilty. Nothing in the judicial system is more basic or more sacrosanct, but the insidious spread of a culture, inevitably driven by social media, that encourage us to see every woman as a potential or actual victim, is destroying that foundation stone. Increasingly, from the moment an allegation of rape is made, the police and judiciary tend to use language that implies it is based on fact and that all men are potential predators of women. This, I believe, is part of a dangerous trend being pushed by feminists that cast women as innocents incapable of lying. As I argue in my latest book, Women versus Feminism, this does a deadly causes of equality and justice. The case of Liam Allen, the 22-year-old undergraduate arrested after an ex-girlfriend filed 6 charges of rape and 1 of sexual assault against him, is a stark warning of the dangers to both individuals and to society as a whole. Scorned. Thankfully, the case was thrown out, but in the previous 14 months, Mr. Allen's life has been made a misery as he faced up to 20 years in jail. Even now, his reputation is badly battered. His mother said, "The assumption is there no smoke without fire. In the current climate, in these sorts of cases, you're guilty until you can prove yourself innocent." Only after months of mental torture was the public able to learn more about the false rape allegation. It appears an ex-girlfriend had been angry with Mr. Allen, perhaps because he had ended their relationship and seemingly sought vengeance. This, I believe, is part of a dangerous trend being pushed by feminists. They cast women as innocents and capable of lying. As I argue in my latest book, the fury of the woman scorned is as old as the hills, but women have now found a dangerous new outlet in the form of a justice system that has been tampered with by feminists to fit their agenda. Most worryingly, this case is far from unique. I recently spent a week in court watching a trial of a young man accused of rape. The experience shocked me. First, the alleged victim and the accused were treated very differently. The young woman, rape victims are, of course, always anonymous, was called by her first name and treated differentially by the barristers and the judge. The young man was treated almost as a criminal from the start. He was dressed by his surname, and to me it seemed a subliminal subtext was ever present, that there was no doubt he had committed the crime. In the end, however, the jury found him not guilty by a unanimous verdict. Undoubtedly, the court experience for any rape accuser is not pleasant, but unlike the men in these 2 cases, they will not risk facing long-lasting shame for simply being charged with rape, even though both accused men were cleared. More pertinently, neither women will suffer from having brought their accusations, because the public will know their identities. Because the public will never know their identities, unless, as happens in rare cases, they are taken to court for making false accusations. How is this equality? How is this fair? How can this be called a victory for feminism? As a woman, I believe it is demeaning to all women that the police and judicial system seem to encourage people to believe all accusations of rape, even if unproved. As demeaning as the way in the past some police treated rape victims insensitively, or worse, routinely dismissed women's allegations of sexual assault. Such appalling behavior, quite rightly, led to a change in the way rape victims were interviewed and treated. But to go too far the other way, for example, to pretend women are incapable of telling lies, is to imply absurdly that women are more morally virtuous than men. This is disgracefully belittling of women. Indeed, it treats them as if they are fragile china dolls incapable of standing up for themselves. If that's what modern feminism wants, I can imagine nothing more damaging to women. But the tragedy is that such a culture is not just being promoted by feminist academics, but is being encouraged by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Alison Saunders. In what seems to be a personal crusade, our top prosecutor has continually pushed for more rape prosecutions and has recently suggested a rape acquittal did not mean the alleged victim was not telling the truth. Inevitably, such a policy will increase the tendency for women to be believed while evidence to the contrary is downplayed or even buried, as in the case of Liam Allen, if only to increase conviction rates and meet targets. Indeed, in the case of Mr. Allen, this may have made police reluctant to investigate text messages sent by his accuser that eventually proved his innocence. Police initially told the defense the texts were not relevant because they were too personal. Once the texts were revealed to the court, the case collapsed within minutes. No wonder when one of them, about her experience with the man she accused, said, "It wasn't against my will or anything." In some vociferous quarters of social media, merely talking about such issues surrounding claims of rape is considered a crime against feminism. Just as we are encouraged to accept blindly the claims of all rape victims, the assumption is that we must not challenge the notion that all men are potential rapists. Feminists are quick to tell us that a so-called rape culture pervades everyday life, that the lyrics of songs, pictures on advertising billboards, and the language used in day-to-day conversations all legitimize the culture that makes us rape acceptable. This way of thinking assumes a friendly pat on the arm is on par with sexual assault. As a result, men are being sacked or taken to court for such inappropriate touching on the word of women who, for all we know, might have tacitly encouraged the advances, who might even be lying. In recent weeks, as part of the Me Too phenomenon, in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein Hollywood sex scandal, countless women have come forward to accuse men of inappropriate sexual behavior, often relating to incidents many years ago. Some of these cases will be genuine, where a woman feels able to speak out at last in the belief that what was truly a sexual assault will be taken seriously, and the man forced to face up to what he did. But others may use the new openness to their own advantage, to get their own back, to score a point, to exact revenge. Of course, it must be said that men are capable of doing the same, but the fact is they rarely complain about sexual assault by a woman. Young people are growing up in a world where rape culture is assumed to be prevalent, with university students having to attend compulsory consent classes. In previous generations, it was assumed that any young man who needed a tutorial in how not to commit sexual assault should not be at university in the first place. Today's #MeToo movement and the assumption that rape is prevalent means anyone who doubts a woman when she says she has been raped is compounding the crime. This is the justice of the lynch mob, and if it is allowed to continue by police, the DPP, and the legal establishment, it will be a setback for feminism for years and damage the lives of all women. That is Joanna Williams for the Daily Mail. All right, ladies, there you have it. What she was talking about is the backlash that she sees coming. When you get into your logical mind and you project the outcome, what is the only way to protect women from men, all men, is to separate them, which is the very reason that when you have criminals or non-repentant criminals, where do you put them? You separate them from society. But you can't separate half the population, especially a productive population, from society. What you have to do is separate how men and women mix, which is basically Sharia law, where women are always protected and always guarded against rogue males or males of any kind. It's not that they don't trust female nature, they don't trust male nature. That's Sharia law, which is why you used to have women dress a certain way, so there would be absolutely no temptation or no excuse for a man to do anything or gaze upon a woman. And we used to think it was something that the men actually wanted, but we're starting to find out that history repeats itself because human nature stays is as it always was. And we're finding out that it's actually the women that probably first prompted Sharia law, first prompted the separation, because history is repeating itself again. Even though women are sexually liberated and protected as much as you can protect a free human being in a free society, we have not elevated women to the point where they walk alongside men as equals. And as this feminist, she's not anywhere close to being a apologist for men. She sees what's happening. You fight for 200 years to be equal to men, equal to your fellow males, or your males, period. But you still want to be protected like children. You can't have those two things occupy the same space. Because if you're supposed to be equal, you're supposed to be able to protect yourself. You cannot be equal. You cannot be the same as, or you cannot be an equivalent if you can't do the same job. Men are expected to protect themselves. From the largest guy, largest 7-footer, to the smallest runt. Men are expected to protect themselves, care for themselves. Even amongst men, if you're a little guy and you take that ass, you get an ass whipping, you take that ass whipping, because it is what it is. You're supposed to be able to get yourself out of it. So the fact that she's saying this, she's saying about this Me Too, saying about this Me Too witch hunt, and why it will set women back. Even though women think it's going to push them forward. No, it's actually going to set you back. Back years ago, women were deemed incapable of taking care of themselves. So they had to have a guardian, which is the woman's father or her husband, because she wasn't expected to be responsible for herself. That's how come she didn't have money or property in her name, because she was deemed not able to be responsible for herself. Just like you wouldn't sign over your money or your deed to your property to your 10-year-old child. You would have a guardian for that child. And women are asking the state to be their guardian, asking for men to be their guardians. The guardian is in a superior role, and the wards of the state, the wards of men, are an inferior role. Your children are inferior to you as far as a role. And women are going to have to decide. One day women are going to have to decide, either you want to be equal to a man or you don't. Not that you should treat me equally, because we know that's not going to happen. Either you're equal or you're not. Men, especially in the world of men, you have to prove that you are equal, or you're superior, or whatever you are. You have to prove, otherwise you will be deemed and seen not as. It is what it is. But with that, I'm going to jump off of here. That's all I got on this one. This is BGS out, and I'll see you on the next one.